Agitation seeped into her voice, heated and raw. He stepped forward, closing the distance, and she felt her pulse quicken, not from fear now, but from his proximity. "Then let me in. Let me see. Let me help you find your way out of this prison you call marriage." It was his determination that tethered her emotions, a magnetic pull she couldn't resist even if her mind screamed against it. As he reached for her, the air tightened around them. His hand slid within her grasp, sending jolts of sensation through her. "You brought me into this world with your art, Laelani," he murmured. "Let me help you paint a different life." In that moment, the room transformed, walls closing in but opening her heart. The tension shifted again, inexplicably tender. Her breath caught. Their faces were inches apart. And then it happened, like an undeniable force of nature. Their lips met softly at first, the kind of kiss that teased destiny before crashing into its full potential. Fire ignited between them, melting away the world outside. She felt herself surrendering, losing track of everything but the sweetness of his kiss. It was warmth, it was longing, and it was every unspoken desire laid bare. But abruptly, reality crashed back in as a crash sounded from the street below, a car far too loud and intrusive to ignore. The kiss broke, both breathless and wide-eyed, a moment captured in time that would never feel quite complete. "Are you ready to choose?" Desmond whispered, his breath mingling with hers, anticipation hanging heavily in the air. As the distant sirens began to wail, Laelani knew she was at a crossroads. The stakes had never felt higher. "I think I need to decide," she said, her voice barely a whisper as a thought coalesced, one final line reaching timbre-like through the din of chaos outside. "Before it's too late." Scene 22. Truth revealed. The late afternoon sun filtered through the high windows of Desmond Carver's modest apartment, casting fractured beams across the room's stark furniture, an unmade bed, a battered wooden table, and a wall splashed with Laelani's framed paintings. The fading light mirrored the day's growing tension, a subtle reminder of secrets too close to the surface. Desmond leaned against the window, his breath fogging the glass as he peered into the street below, where shadows converged and broke apart like flickering memories. Laelani stood at the table, rummaging through an assortment of art supplies, trying to find focus within the chaos. The sweet, freshly opened tubes of paint and the scent of linseed oil mingled in the air, but the vibrancy of their colors felt muted. She had lost her spark amid uncertainty. "Desmond," she called, her voice tense. "Why didn't you tell me about your plan?" His gaze remained fixed outside, where the world teemed with life, oblivious to the tempest brewing just within these walls. "It's not what you think," Desmond replied, his voice steady but laced with an edge. "I'm trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Laelani's brows knitted together in disbelief. "Or manipulate me? You've made decisions for me that I wasn't even aware of." She stormed over to join him, her expression a convoluted blend of anger and hurt. "What kind of life are we building if you can't even be honest with me?" He finally turned to her, eyes dark with this unspoken truth, his deeper, darker motives that dance between shadows of loyalty and treachery. "This life isn't just about us, Laelani. We're caught in a game that's bigger than either of us. Your husband." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication, a gravitational pull that drew shadows into the light. The weight of silence settled, pressing down on her as if the walls themselves were closing in. Memories of laughter shared and secrets whispered felt distant now, corroded by the sharp need for truth. "You know what he's capable of. I can't just sit by and watch you put yourself in danger," he said, desperation creeping in. Laelani stepped closer, distance dwindling as she felt the heat radiate off his body. "And what about us? What do you want, Desmond? Am I part of your plan?" The vulnerability in her voice pierced him, the sincerity wrapped in anxieties he once viewed as mere echoes rather than the truth of her heart. Then the outside world shifted violently. A gunshot rang out, a sharp crack that severed the air like a knife cutting through flesh. Both jumped, hearts racing, as adrenaline surged through their veins. "Stay low," Desmond urged, pulling Laelani down to crouch behind the table. Their bodies pressed together, the warmth of her skin grounding him as fear electrified the air. "What was that?" she whispered, breath quickening. "Just stay with me." Desmond's gaze caught hers, the look unguarded, fierce time suspended in that moment of shared fear. Filled with adrenaline, the need to protect her transformed into something deeper. He leaned in closer, lips barely brushing against hers, time swirling like a tempest around them. "Desmond?" Laelani began, but his mouth found hers in a sweeping rush, silencing all doubts, submerging fear into passion. A kiss, rife with longing, layered with urgency, as if they were seeking refuge from the chaos outside and the tumult within. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a warning, or perhaps an echo of the storm brewing in both their hearts. The kiss deepened, carrying away the world's noise, spinning into intimacy, violent yet tender, a stark juxtaposition with the chaos outside. Their breaths mingled, fueling an electric tension thick as smoke. Just as the clock ticked toward its next hour, Desmond's grip on her deepened, pulling her closer still, as if the walls could dissolve around them. She melted into him, searching for something firm amid the uncertainty. Passion vibrated, but with it, threads of doubt tightened in the pit of her stomach, weaving memories like shadows. Loyalty to her husband, the fear of betrayal, a life fraying at the edges. A moment stretched, suspended in time, but as the chaos outside simmered, reality began to seep back in, bringing forth every truth and deception between them. "What do we do now?" Laelani finally murmured against his lips, her heart skidding into uncertainty once more, the fragile bond tethered by hunger for truth amidst the shadows. Desmond, breathless, could only respond with the weight of future decisions grinding against the delicate fabric of their lives. "We face it together." Scene 23. Dare to Dream. As the sun set over the opulent estate, golden light streamed through the high windows of Laelani Sinclair's studio, casting warm shadows over her canvases. The air was thick with the scent of linseed oil and the faint trace of lavender from the bouquet on her desk. Cluttered yet vibrant with color, the room was a sanctuary of chaotic beauty, a reflection of Laelani's own tumultuous heart. Each stroke of paint on the canvas whispered the desires she dared not voice, the dreams she had buried beneath layers of obligation. Laelani stood before her latest work, a swirling depiction of a stormy sea, waves crashing against a vessel that threatened to capsize. Her fingers, stained with paint, trembled slightly as she reached out to touch the canvas, the bristles of her brush still streaking against the fabric's surface. It was a chaotic beauty that symbolized her own life trapped in turbulent waters, yearning for the freedom of the horizon. The door creaked open, and Desmond entered. His presence was a collision of stability and electricity. He carried a hint of sandalwood and amber. A quick glance at her revealed tension in his shoulders, a slight crease in his brow that spoke of hidden burdens. "Have you ever thought about sailing?" he asked, leaning casually against the doorframe as if he belonged there, redefining the very essence of her daily routine. "Only in dreams." Laelani sighed. "In reality, I'm chained to the helm of my life." She waved her paint-covered hand dismissively, indicating her carefully constructed captivity. "Life can be like that," he replied, stepping closer, a flicker of intensity in his dark eyes. "But what if you took the helm yourself? What if you dared to chart your own course?" Laelani hesitated, her heart racing at the thought. "And where would I go? What would I do?" The vulnerability in her voice lingered in the air, thickening the atmosphere. Desmond's gaze dropped to the canvas. "You'd create, paint your own paradise. You've hardly begun to unleash the artist inside you. If you want the tides to change, you have to raise your sails." A nervous laugh escaped Laelani's lips, but it quickly faded as she absorbed his words. "I feel like I'm about to sink before I've even cast off." He stepped closer, his arm brushing against hers, sending a surge of warmth through her. "The bravest sailors don't always know the waters. They just have to trust the wind," he murmured. Their eyes locked, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. Laelani's pulse quickened, and she felt a stirring deep within her, a longing for freedom and passion that clawed beneath her well-maintained façade. In another part of the estate, the sound of laughter pierced the air, a stark juxtaposition to the tension simmering between them. It was Devon, the ever-charming friend of her husband, belting out a chorus of a popular tune while Meredith, Laelani's friend since childhood, attempted to dance along with exaggerated flair. "Devon, if you break another vase, you'll be the one paying for it," Meredith joked, her laughter cascading through the hallway. "Lord knows we can't have another one of Laelani's prized pieces shattered by your clumsiness." The laughter drew Laelani's attention, but Desmond would not let her glance away. "Forget the laughter. Listen closer. They don't know you like I do." His tone dropped, coaxing her attention back. "You are more than just an artist in a gilded cage." She felt the weight of his words, the truth wrapped in every syllable. A lump formed in her throat, and she had to swallow hard. What if leaving means I'll never look back? What if you don't leave and every day feels the same? Desmond interjected gently, leaning in closer, capturing her full attention. Freedom can be a scary thing, but you can't drift if you don't leap into the unknown. Laelani clenched her jaw, a battle raging between her fears and desires. She felt the spark of something profound kindling in her chest, blurring the edges of her reality. The music continued to hum through the walls, but all she could hear was Desmond's heartbeat, echoing her own. "What do you dream of, Laelani?" he asked softly, his breath warming her skin. She hesitated, fully aware of the path beneath their feet, the choices, the expectations. "I dream of painting the world filled with color and life. I dream of a place where art isn't limited by my marriage. I dream of living, really living." Desmond's eyes shone bright. "Then you should chase that dream. Life is too precious for anything less, and if you need me, I'll be right here, waiting to help you raise those sails." Laelani felt a weight lift slightly from her shoulders, hope flickering through the dread that had often clung to her like a shadow. Could she really pursue her dreams? As the music from the gathering danced in the background, a delicate thrill surged through her. "Then let's sail into that horizon together," she whispered, her heart daring to join her mind in hope. In the chaos of laughter beyond the walls, something new ignited, a sense of possibility that shone brighter than the allure of her gilded cage. As the warmth of his closeness enveloped her, Laelani realized daring to dream might just lead her to the freedom she'd always desired. Scene 24. Fly free or fight. The heavy scent of sandalwood wafted through the living room as Laelani Sinclair absent-mindedly dusted her vibrant collection of canvas paintings, remnants of a once passionate artistic journey. Each brushstroke spoke to a fragment of her soul, yet today they felt suffocating, like a straitjacket. Outside, the clouds gathered, dark and swollen with rain, mirroring the turmoil that churned within her. "Beautiful as always," a voice floated in from the doorway. It was Desmond, his presence like a spark that ignited the air around them. He stepped inside, shaking the dampness from his coat, every movement fluid and captivating. "Do you think so?" Laelani replied, her tone light, but her heart trembled with the weight of her choices. "Or are you just trying to flatter me?" "Flattery only goes so far. The truth is, you know they are breathtaking." He stepped closer, the warmth radiating from his body like a soothing balm against her frayed nerves. Their gazes locked, that familiar tension igniting between them. "Breathtaking," she echoed, her mind flickering to the world outside. Her husband's empire loomed large, suffocating her spirit like the impending storm. She could feel the storm's charge in the air, a palpable pressure as each moment ticked away towards a decision she couldn't delay. "It's just, art can be a mask, can't it? It hides the pain, the reality." Desmond tilted his head, silently urging her to clarify. "What pain?" Laelani drew in a shaky breath, the weight of unspoken secrets pressing down on her. "The pain of playing a role that isn't me. I'm the perfect wife, the accepted face of my husband's world, but—" She trailed off, allowing the words to hang like the murky clouds outside. "Then let's change the scene," Desmond replied softly, stepping even closer, their chemistry crackling in the space between them. "What if you could be free? No masks, no roles?" His voice dropped to a whisper, a tantalizing promise. A distant thunder rumbled, and Laelani shivered, not from fear, but from anticipation. "Free sounds wonderful, but it also sounds terrifying. You don't understand. Alan's world is dark. And so is the bond you hold with him. Look around, Laelani. This is all painted in shades of gray," Desmond urged, gesturing to the room filled with her art. "And yet, you're the brightest splash of color here. You should be out there, not locked away within these walls." The door swung open abruptly, and in strode Chet, a burly family friend and fixer of sorts for Alan. His arrival dampened the atmosphere, like an unwelcome gust of wind sweeping into the room. "Laelani, got your art show preps all done? Alan's expecting you at the gallery tonight." The tension shifted as Desmond drew back, his expression momentarily darkening. "Is that so?" he replied, the note of challenge in his voice unmistakably palpable. "Yeah, he didn't mention a thing to me." Laelani tried to sound casual, but the words felt heavy on her tongue, as if confessing to a sin. Just busy with things. Chet shot her a knowing look, his brow raised. "You'd better not keep him waiting. The last thing we need is Alan's mood souring. It's risky with the other families watching." Laelani's heart raced, a reminder that in her husband's games, mistakes were paid for in blood. "I know," she whispered, her mind reeling. "Always playing the obedient pawn," Desmond retorted, his cool façade cracking, exposing a flicker of anger. "Or do you want to take a chance? A risk worth taking?" Laelani looked between the two men, the storm outside reflected in her heart. "It's not that simple." "Life rarely is," Desmond pressed, a glimmer of urgency in his eyes. "We're not just pieces on a board. We can fly free or we can fight. But don't allow fear to chain you down." The weight of his words hung in the air, electric. Laelani's heart thudded against her ribcage. She was caught in a tempest, the swirling emotions refusing to settle. "What if it costs you everything?" Desmond leaned closer, lifting her chin gently. "What if staying costs you more? You have the power to choose, Laelani." As thunder cracked above, she felt the ground beneath her shift. With a flick of his thumb, he caressed her skin, igniting a flame that had long been dormant within her. The world outside thundered, but right there, in that charged moment, nothing else mattered. "Choose," he urged softly, his breath a mere whisper, piercing through the shadows. Laelani could already feel the weight of her decision lingering like the storm that loomed overhead as their gazes melded together, alive with possibility and peril. Somewhere deep within her, the answer unfolded. "What happens if I choose you?" Desmond's lips twisted into a confident smile. "Then we fight this storm together." And suddenly she was reminded of the paintings, brilliant, vibrant, messy, each brushstroke a choice. And in that moment, she felt herself beginning to paint a future anew. Scene 25, Under Siege. The wind howled through the open windows of Laelani's art studio, tousling the sheer curtains like restless spirits longing for freedom. Desmond leaned against the wooden doorframe, arms crossed, a playful smirk playing on his lips as he surveyed the chaos of colors and canvases strewn about the room. "Do you think he'll really carry through on his promise, Laelani?" he asked, his tone dripping with a mix of concern and mischief. Laelani's brow furrowed, the tension in her shoulders hardening. "He's not bluffing, Desmond. You know how he gets when he feels cornered." The paint-smeared apron she wore was a stark contrast to the fine lines of worry etched across her face. She waved a brush in the air as if trying to ward off the looming threat, letting the brush drop slightly in a moment of vulnerability. Desmond stepped closer, the scent of cedar and adrenaline filling the air. "Then we fight back, or we run. There's always a choice." His gaze pierced her, daring but inviting, awakening an urgency within her that made her heart race. She turned away, pretending to analyze a half-finished painting of a tempest, vibrant strokes of blue and gray swirling together. "And what if I can't run? What if it's too dangerous?" Her voice trembled as she spoke, echoing the storm brewing outside. "I'll make it safe for you." Desmond's tone softened, yet it held an intensity that sent sparks blossoming between them. The coming storm outside mirrored the raging tempest of her emotions, urging her to choose between loyalty and love, security and passion. "I can't let you put yourself in danger because of me." Laelani's voice was steady now, the tension of the moment crackling like static in the air. Desmond reached out, fingers brushing against her arm, sending a shiver coursing through her. "You act like you don't deserve to fight for your own life." "Maybe I'm not ready to fight," she whispered. Their eyes locked, and the air grew thick with weighty silence. It was as if time collapsed, leaving only the two of them suspended in mutual understanding, a yearning that coursed just beneath the surface of spoken words. With a swift, determined motion, he closed the distance, pulling her closer to him. The warmth radiating from his body enveloped her, and for a moment, Laelani allowed herself to lean into that heat, closing her eyes to the impending storm of uncertainty outside. "Ready or not, you're worth fighting for," Desmond murmured, his voice low and steady. The storm broke through the sky in the distance, rumbling ominously, but inside the studio, the chaos transformed into something electrifying. They moved as if guided by invisible strings, inching toward each other, drawn by the unspeakable connection that tethered them despite the looming threats. "Desmond," she breathed, her heart thumping as trepidation mingled with desire. Then, as if the universe had conspired to bring them to this moment, he closed the gap. Their lips met, both hesitant and hungry, a fervent collision of emotion. The taste of warm rain glistened in her memory, as though they were sharing the very essence of the storm outside. Laelani felt the world dissolve, and for an ephemeral instant, nothing else mattered but this kiss, his lips mingling with hers, igniting embers into a fire. Just as the kiss deepened, echoing the thunder that cracked loudly overhead, the door burst open, a rectangular slice of darkness framing the scene. Her husband, Jackson Sinclair, stood there, eyes cold and menacing. "What do we have here?" he sneered, the flicker of rage igniting behind his gaze. Caught in the moment, Laelani felt her heart plummet. The world around them shifted abruptly, joy collapsing into palpable fear. Desmond's grip tightened around her waist instinctively, grounding her against the whirlwind of chaos that had emerged. With a sharp intake of breath, she willed herself to find her voice in the suffocating silence that followed. "It's not what it looks like, Jackson." The storm outside echoed her sentiment, a harsh reminder that disagreements could unravel lives, as lightning flashed ominously in the distance. "Loyalty breached, Laelani? From my own wife?" Jackson's low voice was filled with a chilling sense of betrayal. And in that moment, Laelani realized she was not just on the precipice of love, she was standing at the edge of war. Scene 26 captured hearts. The radiant sun hung low in the orange-hued sky, casting elongated shadows across the vibrant street of Harlem. The air thick with the mingling scents of freshly brewed coffee and spiced pastries belied an undercurrent of tension. Laelani Sinclair stood on her modest balcony, her fingers brushing the railing's cool metal as she surveyed the world below, waiting for Desmond. Her heartbeat synchronized with the rhythmic pulse of the city, but unease rippled through her. Today felt different. Inside, the faint strains of jazz floated from the radio, mingling with the fragrant aroma of jasmine and lavender from her blossoming plants. Yet, as she grabbed her paintbrush, the familiar motions felt stilted. It was as if each stroke of color was a reminder of the distance growing between her and the life she thought she was meant to live. "Art is supposed to inspire, not imprison," she murmured to herself, frustration coloring her voice. It felt utterly surreal to think that her husband, Marcus, a man of considerable power within the criminal underbelly, could stifle her spirit so completely. As she guided the brush across the canvas, creating vivid strokes of deep blues and fiery reds, the door swung open, and Desmond stepped into her sanctuary. He left a trail of his unique scent, a mix of sandalwood and citrus, filling the space with an energy that ignited every nerve in her body. "Laelani," he greeted, his voice a rich baritone that never failed to draw her in. "How's the masterpiece coming?" "Just about as well as every other day," she responded, forcing lightness into her tone despite the throbbing anxiety beneath it. "Which means I'm probably doomed to paint the same confining scene forever." Desmond stepped closer, peering at the canvas, his brow furrowing as he took in her artistic struggle. Maybe it's time to break the rules. With that suggestion, she felt warmth prickling her skin. His presence invoked something more profound than mere companionship. It was an electric charge that signaled a storm was brewing. And how do you propose we do that? With a daring heist, or perhaps an afternoon of excitement? He raised an eyebrow, his lips curling just slightly into a teasing smile. "You wouldn't be able to resist a bit of adventure, would you?" Before she could respond, the phone rang, an unwelcome distraction. Laelani turned to answer, the tension in her shoulders unwinding slightly as she anticipated the sound of a loved one. Instead, Marcus's sharp voice boomed through the receiver. "Laelani, where are you?" "I'm here at the studio," she replied, attempting to keep her voice calm and even. "Get home now. We need to talk." The line went dead, leaving a heavy silence hanging in the air. She glanced at Desmond, who moved closer, his expression unreadable. "What was that about?" "I don't know." She tried to steady her voice, but a tremor betrayed her. Marcus seemed urgent. There was a flicker of something in Desmond's gaze, a glimmering possessiveness that set her heart racing and her pulse quickening. "Urgent." He moved closer still, lowering his voice. What if it's about us? A tension-filled moment passed before she responded. I can't be disloyal, Desmond. Not to him. Not to this life. Is that what you call it, loyalty? His voice became a low growl, frustration creeping into his tone. Is it being loyal or running away from what you truly want? Desmond, stop it, she exclaimed, the argument igniting a fire within her, urgency intertwining with tension. This isn't just about you and me. There are people involved, a world that I'm tethered to. Yet before she could expand on that tumultuous thought, a wooden creak echoed from inside the apartment. Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing Marcus, his presence a tidal force that filled the room. His dark eyes scanned the scene, locking onto Desmond with an intensity that dripped with unspoken threats. What are you doing here? He demanded, his voice steeped in accusation. Marcus, Laelani started, but he cut her off. It's over, Laelani. You're coming with me. His anger was palpable, aiming to suffocate her. As the air thickened with palpable tension, Desmond stepped forward. She's not going anywhere. Laelani's heart raced furiously. Caught in a crossfire of emotions, danger, and unexpected desire, this moment would define everything. She glanced between the two men, and as storm clouds brewed outside, threatening to burst open, she realized she couldn't quietly comply anymore. With a wrenching thought echoing in her mind, could she align herself with Desmond against the world that threatened to consume her? Maybe it's time to break the rules, she whispered to herself, realizing she was inching closer to the precipice of everything she once thought certain. Scene 27. Shadows of the Past. The air hung thick with the sweet scent of magnolias, their waxy petals catching the last rays of the setting sun. Laelani Sinclair draped herself over the curve of the wrought iron balcony railing, staring out at the silhouette of the city against the lavender sky. Her fingers absent-mindedly traced the ornate ironwork, but her thoughts churned like a storm, seeking an anchor in the tumultuous sea of her desires and duties. Why do you always look like you're waiting for something? Desmond Carver's voice pierced through the thickening twilight, wrapping around them like an uninvited guest. He leaned casually against the doorframe, arms crossed, his dark eyes flickering with that familiar intensity that made her heart race. Laelani turned, guilt pinching at her insides, and met his gaze. I think it's more about what's about to come. What's just out of reach, she replied, her voice steady but tinged with a breathlessness that belied the chaos swirling within. A silence hung between them, charged with unspoken truths that pressed heavily on their shoulders. Desmond stepped closer, each stride purposeful, his body radiating warmth, a stark contrast to the evening chill. I don't just want to be a moment for you, Laelani, but I think you're too afraid to reach out for something real. Laelani's gaze flicked to the ground, the gravel crunching underfoot as memories sparked in her mind, each lighter than the last. Real? What is real? This? Everything feels like a mirage tempting me away from what I know. Then maybe we need to break the glass of your knowledge, Desmond challenged softly, his intensity morphing into something raw, almost pleading. He gestured toward the sprawling city. Look at it. All those lights are people living their own truths. What's stopping you from doing the same? Wouldn't your infiltration of my husband's world change my truth forever? She shot back, tension rising, embers of defiance sparking in her chest. What if my truth is a gilded cage? For a moment, the only sound was the whisper of leaves rustling in the breeze. Desmond's mouth curled, a wry smile pulling at the corners. Then break free. You want to know everything, but are scared of the consequences. I say embrace them. She snorted softly, disbelief tainting her amusement. You make it sound so simple. Jump into the flames and expect to emerge unscathed? Okay, so it's not simple. It's a fire. A wild, beautiful blaze. Desmond was closer now, his breath warm against the cool air, tantalizingly close to crossing a threshold of intimacy they both could taste. But isn't that what you want? Something different? Something real? Laelani's breath caught. Her heart drummed a frantic rhythm. Every word he spoke dripped with promise, and yet doubt clutched at her throat like a vice. In his eyes, she saw the glimmer of a future she was both drawn to and terrified of, like standing on the edge of a cliff. I can't take that leap, she finally whispered, her voice faltering. To put everything I've built on the line for something that feels uncertain. Sometimes uncertainty is the only authentic thing, Desmond urged, a fierce spark igniting between them. It's not about being reckless, Laelani. It's about daring to want. Before he could say more, the resonant sound of tires screeching disrupted the intimacy, dragging both back to the urgency of their lives. Desmond's posture shifted sharply. His instincts kicked in like a clockwork mechanism. We might not have time for this. His eyes narrowed, scanning the driveway below. We need to talk about the last shipment and your husband's latest competition. The heaviness of his words settled between them, shattering the moment. No, I can't. I won't be drawn back into that world, Laelani declared, a tremor pushing her voice to a near shout. But even as she spoke, she felt the tug of her reality pulling her in two directions, toward Desmond's wild flame and back to her husband's iron grip. Then what will you choose? Desmond asked quietly, each letter punctuating the air like the beat of a drum. Still deciding, Laelani replied, the gravity of her uncertainty girding her heart like iron chains. The threads of her life were fraying, and she sensed the impending storm, the collision of both their worlds. Desmond's hand brushed against hers, electric and fearsome. Remember, no one is coming to save you. Laelani swallowed hard, feeling the weight of that truth more than ever. As they both stood on the precipice of choices neither of them could fully comprehend. Scene 28, plans aborted. The sharp scent of rain-soaked asphalt filled the air as the heavy clouds cried over the city, discharging their weight in torrents. A dimly lit penthouse, once a haven of elegance, felt more like a cage as Laelani Sinclair paced the plush rug, her fingers curling and uncurling like a restless cat. The walls adorned with her vibrant canvases, each stroke a frozen moment of joy, now mocked her as tension crackled like static electricity. Outside, the distant rumble of thunder mirrored the turmoil brewing within her. Desmond Carver stood by the window, a silhouette framed by the droplets cascading down the glass. Every line of his physique radiated energy, a taut readiness, like a coiled spring. His eyes, smoldering with urgency and fierce determination, darted from the street to Laelani, who had halted mid-stride. "Are you sure he'll find out?" Laelani finally asked, her voice a whisper, though her heart raced frantically against her ribcage. The thought of her husband's reach and influence sent a shiver down her spine. Her loyalty fractured with each moment spent in Desmond's magnetic presence. "He already knows, that's just it," Desmond replied, his jaw tightened as he turned to face her, the weight of their reality heavy in the space between them. "You don't understand how deep this goes, Laelani." "But I can't just leave him," she countered, crossing her arms defensively, caught in a swirl of passion and fear. "I can't take the risk," he urged, stepping closer, the storm brewing outside reflecting in their entwined fates. "He has people watching, people who won't hesitate to act." A flash of fear mingled with defiance in Laelani's eyes. "So you expect me to just run?" A breath caught in her throat, and she found herself searching his face, feverishly looking for a hint of an escape. "What about my life? My work? Your life is at stake here. Don't you get that?" Desmond took a step closer, his voice low but crackling with urgency. "This isn't just about us. A viper nest lurks outside these walls. I won't have you hurt because of him." Before Laelani could respond, the piercing sound of the door crashing open shattered the fraught air like glass underfoot. Desmond instinctively dropped into a protective stance, his muscles coiled in a sudden eruption of adrenaline. Two men burst in, dressed in black, their faces obscured by shadows but their intention unmistakable. "Desmond Carver," one barked, brandishing a weapon, the steel glinting menacingly, illuminating the fear etched on Laelani's face. "You think you can sneak in and out of this without consequences?" "I won't let anything happen to her," Desmond growled through clenched teeth, stepping in front of Laelani. An unyielding beast, ready to defend his prize against the odds stacked against them. "Your loyalty to her will be your downfall," the other assailant replied, a cruel smile stretching across his face. "You forgot where you are, boy." It all unfolded at once. Limbs tangled, bullets whizzed, and chaos engulfed the room. Laelani's heart raced, a frantic rhythm matching the thud of her pulse in her ears. She watched in horror as Desmond fought with a primal intensity, a dance of danger and desire. Just then the thunder boomed louder outside, echoing their tumult. In the cacophony, Laelani caught glimpses of Desmond's tenacity, sweat glistening on his brow as he deflected blows. His fierce protection spun her emotions wildly. This man who had ignited her spirit now embodied a warrior defending her very existence. Suddenly, Laelani sprang into action, grabbing a heavy bookend from a nearby shelf. "Get away from him," she yelled, swinging it with surprising strength, catching one of the attackers off guard. The resulting satisfaction surged through her veins, her independence unrolling in sparks of rebellion. Desmond looked back, surprised, admiration flickering in his eyes. "Laelani," he shouted, his fierce protector façade softening momentarily, even as he wrestled with the other assailant. "Keep fighting," she grounded herself in the chaos. "We can't let them win." A standoff snapped into place, punctuating the air. Desmond and Laelani, hearts pulsating with fear yet threaded with resolve, became a unit forced into a moment of whispered understanding. "I won't let you go back to him," Desmond declared fiercely, his eyes piercing through the haze of the moment. "Not now, not ever." Laelani nodded, determination sparking to life amidst the chaos. "Then let's finish this." In that intertwining embrace of unity under duress, they stood ready to face whatever storm lay ahead, bodies taut and hearts racing, forever bound by their desperate plight. Scene 29. The Reckoning. The evening sun slanted through the towering windows of Laelani's opulent study, casting long shadows that danced across the luxurious Persian rug. An air of tension crackled like static electricity in a storm, the thick scent of mahogany and old leather mingling with the anticipation that hung in the air. "I still don't understand why you would risk everything for him." Sinclair's voice cut through the thick silence, resonating with frustration. He loomed in front of Laelani, his broad shoulders exuding a power that could command any room, but the fury in his icy blue eyes betrayed an uncharacteristic vulnerability. Laelani's heart quickened as she met his gaze, unyielding despite the swirling emotions within her. "You only see the surface, Rael. There's more than what lies beneath." Her voice wavered slightly, but she stood her ground, willing to embrace whatever storm was brewing. Behind the closed door, muffled laughter from the cocktail party vibrated faintly, a stark contrast to the turmoil bubbling between them. The lavish event organized in Rael's honor had tangled with their confrontation, blurring the line between the obligations of a wife and the desires of a woman. Rael stepped closer, his tone a whip, cracking the air. "You mean my driver? The one you've welcomed into our home? What's the allure, Laelani? Is it the thrill, or do you truly consider him a meaningful presence in your life?" His words sliced through her. Memories of whispered exchanges and charged glances with Desmond flooded her mind. His laughter, the way he held her gaze as if she were the most precious thing in the world. The warmth of his presence, the pulse of excitement he kindled within her, shadowed beneath the surface of her carefully curated life. "It's not just thrill, Rael," she murmured, glancing away for a moment to recollect her thoughts. "It's about feeling alive and—" "Alive?" Rael's voice rose, echoing off the walls. "Do you even understand what that means anymore?" He raked a hand through his dark hair, a sign of his mounting agitation. "Your art has suffered, Laelani. You've stood by, a passive observer in your own life, while I've plowed through enemies, constantly fighting for our future." The contrast of their worlds sat heavy between them, a chasm of responsibility versus passion. Choosing to fight or to surrender became a desperate pull, each grappling with their core beliefs. "Your future?" Laelani whispered. Her voice edged with disbelief. "You think you're building our future, but all I see is a grand façade masking chaos and destruction. Is it too much to want no, to need something more?" The silence after her words felt like a physical presence, wrapping around them, suffocating yet electrifying. In that moment, she realized, every choice, every word could be a dagger or a bridge. Meanwhile, retreating from their exchange, Desmond leaned against the cool exterior of the grand estate, feeling the heat of the night settle in. He should be elsewhere, either attending the party or making his own plans, but his heart drew him back to Laelani, tangled in emotions more potent than he could fathom. The crickets chirped rhythmically, but all he could hear was the deep thrum of his pulse in his ears. Across the garden, he caught sight of several of Rael's men, a looming presence that couldn't be ignored. Desmond felt the weight of his choices, decisions that had brought him closer to Laelani yet further away from his ultimate goal. Was it right to want her? To become entangled in her husband's schemes, risking everything for an illicit passion? Back in the study, Laelani suddenly felt small beneath Rael's glare, but something inside her ignited a stubborn resilience. You've carved a path out of fear, but I refuse to drown in it. This world you've built, it's collapsing, and I can't be a part of that any longer. Her voice sharpened, bordering on defiance. Rael stepped back as if struck, the moment stretching between them delicately. Then what will you do, Laelani? The air held a weight to the unspoken challenge in his question, a dare to step into the unknown. For the first time, she turned her back to him, gazing through the expansive glass that framed the dusky horizon. I'll find my own way, she whispered, feeling the heat of her choice surge through her veins. No more shadows. Laelani's heart beat steadily against her chest. The finality of her words echoed in the silence of the study, resonating beyond the walls of expectations and into the vast wilderness of her desires. Scene 30, a heart sacrifice. The air was thick with anticipation as Desmond leaned against the cool stucco wall of the garage, his heart racing. With night creeping upon them, the shadows deepened, wrapping the scene in a shroud of uncertainty. Laelani stood nearby, her figure illuminated by the dim streetlight seeping through the cracked windows. "Do you really think it will ever end?" Laelani asked, her voice trembling slightly. Desmond sensed the weight behind her question, the way her brow furrowed under the faint glow. He looked at her, searching for the right words, feeling a vulnerability swell within him that he had never shown before. "Life is messy, Laelani. Sometimes you have to scrape the surface to see what lurks beneath." A flicker of pain crossed her face, and he stepped closer, feeling the magnetic pull he had always experienced around her. "Is that what you want? To dig deeper with me?" The challenge hung in the air, testing the boundaries of their connection. Laelani's breath hitched, and she shook her head, a bittersweet smile creeping to her lips. "That's the question, isn't it?" Before he could reply, a loud crash echoed through the garage, metal scraping metal, the sound of intense chaos. Desmond instinctively gripped Laelani's arm, his instincts alerting him to the danger that surged upon them. "We need to leave," he said urgently, scanning the room for the source. But Laelani stood her ground, a fierce determination flickering in her eyes. "You can't leave now. You can't just walk away from this." Desmond, filled with a mix of fear and resolve, took a deep breath, knowing he had to protect her at all costs. "Laelani, my life doesn't matter compared to yours." She searched his expression for clarity. "What do you mean?" Before Desmond could answer, the garage door flew open, revealing figures clad in dark clothing. A sharp sense of peril enveloped them as he pulled Laelani behind him, becoming her shield without thinking. The two men entered, their eyes darting around, quick to identify the source of the noise that had caught their attention. "Where is he?" one of them barked, face masked and the menace in his tone palpable. "He's not here. You need to leave," Desmond shouted back, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. Laelani gasped, her pulse racing as she grasped Desmond's arm. She could feel the heat radiating from him, could detect the adrenaline coursing through his veins like a promise of danger. "Get out!" Desmond shouted again, shoving Laelani further back and into an old shelving unit. Splintered wood and rusty cans rattled, echoing the turmoil in her heart. As the intruders moved towards them, Desmond's mind raced. The unthinkable, the unspeakable. He would lay down his life for her. But that thought terrified him even as it emboldened him. The men advanced, their presence an oppressive force. Desmond's voice fell to a whisper, only for Laelani's ears. "You have to run the moment I give you the signal." Laelani met his gaze, tears welling up. "What about you?" "I'll be fine," he insisted, though a knot formed in his throat. Could he bear the weight of another sacrifice? "This isn't just about us anymore. Don't let them win." As the first attacker lunged, Desmond moved with lightning speed, blocking the blow. A struggle erupted, bodies colliding in a chaotic dance of survival. Laelani watched, heart pounding, each motion of his fluid, desperate, courageous. The second attacker turned, and she felt her own instincts taking over as she found a rusty wrench, brandishing it as she advanced beside Desmond. "I'm not leaving you," she shouted with startling conviction, the sound cutting through his focus. In that moment, a fierce bond solidified between them, unspoken, yet palpable. Desmond glanced at her, the fire in her gaze igniting something deep within him. With one swift move, he spun, taking down the first intruder, but not without a cost. Pain shot through his shoulder as he felt a sharp fist connect. Laelani rushed to his side, the adrenaline surging through her as she clutched the wrench tighter. "We fight together." With newfound determination, they faced the remaining threat, hearts beating in sync, aware for the first time of how fragile love could be amidst chaos. Just as the last assailant lunged for them, Desmond's smile broke through the turmoil filled with reckless courage and a hint of tenderness. Together, then. As they prepared for the inevitable clash, an indelible understanding passed between them. True sacrifice demanded all. Would love be what they exchanged in the heart of danger? Only time would tell if they could endure amidst all this chaos. Scene 31, Running Wild. The sun hung high, casting golden rays through the large windows of Laelani's studio, where the air hummed with the delicate scent of linseed oil and freshly cut flowers. Each brushstroke of vibrant colors on her canvas spoke of emotions she dared not voice, revealing a world teetering between control and chaos. Today, however, her heart raced with something other than the tranquility of creativity. Laelani stood poised in front of her easel, hands stained with blue and crimson, trapped under the weight of a collision between her desires and the whispered sins of her marriage. Desmond leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with an intensity that made the room pulse with unspoken tension. "Are you really considering this?" Desmond asked, breaking the euphoric silence. His voice was low, threading through the space like a bolt of electricity. Laelani's eyes flicked to him, those deep, knowing pools filled with uncertainty. "It's not simple," her jaw clenched. "My life is not just a canvas to wipe clean." "No, but it could be," he urged, stepping closer, the air thickening between them. "You feel it too, don't you? The need to break free?" Her silence spoke volumes, the hesitation heavier than any words could express. She took a step back, her heart thundering. The brush dropped from her fingers onto the floor, splattering paint across the hardwood. What if it's too late? Desmond reached out, his fingertips hovering over the scattering of paint, the contact like a spark igniting a fire long suppressed. "It's never too late. What you feel, it's real, and it's waiting, ready for you to embrace it." "We could... But what about him?" Laelani interrupted, her voice raw with apprehension. "What if he finds out?" Her thoughts spiraled to her husband's glacial demeanor, the way his eyes would grow cold, calculating. As a crime boss, he thrived on control, his empire built on deception and fear. "The longer you wait, the more dangerous it becomes," Desmond insisted, each word charged with urgency. "We can't keep living in the shadow of his name." With a sudden fierceness, Laelani shook her head, defiant yet ensnared by the very life she sought to escape. "You don't understand. He has eyes everywhere." As if summoned by her words, the distant sound of heavy footsteps echoed outside, punctuating the air with a sharp note of reality. Desmond's eyes darkened, his protective instincts flaring. "We need to go. Now." Laelani's breath caught in her throat as adrenaline surged through her veins. "Go? Just like that?" She gestured wildly, overwhelmed. "What about everything?" A grinding fist of frustration tightened in Desmond's chest. "Everything? This isn't about everything, Laelani. It's about us. Don't you want to escape this life?" Her gaze locked with his, and in that moment, clarity broke through the storm of indecision. The heat radiated off them, an unspoken bond flaring fiercely against an encroaching darkness. It was reckless, it was thrilling, and it was exactly what she craved. "What are you suggesting?" "Run with me." Desmond took another step closer, their faces mere inches apart, the world outside fading into uncertainty. "We'll leave this behind. Together." Just as those hopeful words threaded through her mind, the door banged open, revealing Marcus, Laelani's husband. Dark and formidable like a storm gathering strength, the tension shattered as he stepped into the brilliant sunlight, an imposing figure, the shadow of his own power cloaked across the room. "Desmond? Laelani?" His voice was a chill warning. "What are you two doing?" Panic sizzled in the air, and Desmond's posture shifted into a defensive stance. "We were just wrapping up the day's work," he said, the feigned calmness only partly concealing the truth. Laelani's mind raced. She needed to act, to prove her loyalties. "Marcus, I was just experimenting," she stammered, willing her voice to sound steady. "You know how I can be." his brow furrowed, skepticism draping itself over him like a heavy cloak. Experimenting or conspiring? He stepped forward, eyes narrowing with scrutiny. Desmond stood protectively beside her, a silent sentinel caught between loyalty and burgeoning passion. Heat pulsed in the space between them as Laelani took a breath filled with purpose, glaring defiantly at Marcus. And then the chase began, not of feet pounding against pavement, but the chase of hopes and secrets, the footsteps of normalcy racing against the desperate shuffle toward freedom. It was a beginning, a wild escape to a life unwritten, a chance to rewrite their fates under a sky they could claim as their own. "Let's go," Desmond whispered, their fates entwined, each heartbeat a promise of what might come next. Scene 32. A final choice. The late afternoon sun slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Laelani Sinclair's expansive studio, casting a golden hue over the canvas-laden space. The air smelled faintly of oil paint mixed with the jasmine incense that whispered its way through the corners, a desperate attempt to mask the heavier aroma of tension. Surrounding her, unfinished paintings leaned against the walls like mute witnesses to her turmoil, vibrant strokes battling the looming shadows of her choices. Desmond Carver stood at the threshold, his tall figure framed by the doorway, embodying both chaos and calm. His presence electrified the air. Laelani's heart raced, the familiar rhythm pounding a war drum against her ribcage. There he was, the man whose dark secrets intertwined with her own, whose touch ignited a flame she thought long extinguished. "Desmond," she breathed, the single word heavy with significance. "I came to talk," he replied, his voice low and gravelly, charged with unspoken intent. He stepped inside, each movement deliberate, stirring a soft breeze that caressed her skin.